Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching. My name is Andrew Brokos, and along with Nate Meyvis, I co-host the Thinking Poker podcast. Nate and I, in this video, are going to be reviewing a Pot Limit Omaha 8 or better 6 max tournament that I played as part of the PokerStars World Championship of Online Poker. This is actually the second part in a series. Not really essential that you see the first part, but there's a link here on YouTube to the first part if you're interested in seeing that. And this video is made available to you as part of a fundraising campaign that I was conducting for the Bay Area Urban Debate League, which is a nonprofit organization that I'm involved with. For now, just sit back, enjoy the video, and at the end of the video, I'll encourage you to contribute whatever you feel like the video was worth to this organization. But for now, just watch the video and enjoy. Welcome back, part 2, running through this $300 6 max Pot Limit Omaha 8 or better tournament with good buddy Nate Meyvis. Thanks for joining me, Nate.
Hey, thanks for having me. How are you?
I am excited to be talking about Pot Limit Omaha 8 or better with you.
It's a great game.
So hopefully you all remember some of the important principles from earlier in the video, the importance of playing to scoop and the importance of playing hands that have nut potential. This is a decent late position opening hand, I would say. It doesn't have nut low potential, but it has decent low potential, and it has a backup also. So even if the ace-4 gets counterfeited, I do have a little bit of backup in the way of an 8. The ace-king, we talked about at the end of the previous video, that potential to make top pair. If there's an ace on the board, for instance, I'll have top pair, top kicker, plus not a good low, but if my opponent's low got counterfeited, it could end up playing. And I do have some nut flush potential as well. Do you agree this is good enough to open from the cutoff?
I certainly believe you, but I'll be more confident if you share your screen with me.
Oh, dear. Okay, let's just pause the video for a second. Okay, now that you can see my screen, do you agree this is a good open from the cutoff?
Yeah, it's very thin. You've got very limited high potential. Yeah, I mean, you've got the ace-king suited. That helps, but it's really just one combination that's good for high. The 4-8's not going to help you. The ace-8, ace-4, king-8, king-4, those are all pretty bad high combinations. Then you've got having 3 low cards is nice. This hand's a lot better than ace-king 9-4, but yeah, it's you have very limited value each way. That said, the ace-4 is good. The ace-king and the suited to the ace is good. But I would call this like a steal hand. I would fold it under the gun. I would it's fine, but you're stealing with it, and you're relying on the value of your position.
Yeah, I was conscious of that. I would say decent flop for me, slightly above average. The ace-4 not playing for low is not great, but I think probably worth a bet here. Given that he just defended from the big blind, the likelihood of his having a real premium low is lower than if he had called from the small blind or called from a different position, or if he had been the pre-flop raiser. So I think I can better represent ace-deuce than he can. I do have there's a chance I have the best high now. I do have the nut flush draw. I have some sort of low possibility. I think this seems like a just kind of semi-bluff. I'm pretty surprised.
So this is a great teachable moment. I think this is a great bet for all the reasons that you would usually continuation bet. A lot of hands that have lows better than ace-8 should fold, you would really like to get a fold from a lot of your opponent's hands. Moreover, the hands that raise you are often hands that have you in very bad shape. So you do have the nut flush draw, but if your opponent has a 5 in his hand, the value of that goes way down. And especially because you have 2 high trumps in your hand, it's going to be harder for you to get semi-bluffed. So this is really a great spot to bet. It's worth some value sometimes. It gets a lot of hands that you would like to fold, and you don't lose much when you get check raised and fold because you're in bad shape a lot of the time then. So I think this is a poor check.
Yeah, I did too. I really thought I was going to bet this.
Surprise.
A decent turn for me now. Even if he was playing ace-deuce or deuce-3, it got counterfeited. And I think the fact that he's not betting the turn, I can feel reasonably good about him not having ace-3. So I do think, given that I didn't bet before, I should bet now. The chance of getting him to fold a low actually have gone down if he has one, but I still think it's possible that we can get him to fold some better highs if he has a counterfeited low. And I don't know, betting still seems better than checking to me.
Yeah, that's right. Given that you didn't bet the flop, I would bet now. You have a complete low, a little bit of high value. Oof.
So bad. I know. I was just saying towards the end of the last video that playing too passively is one of the big mistakes in this game, just because you have a non-nut hand, and clearly that's what I'm doing here. Still worth firing.
I mean, given that he hasn't bet yet, you've got a two-way hand. Not that I expect ace four to be good, but if he had a better high hand than ace four, there's a reasonably good chance that he won't have any kind of complete low. So it's close. It could go either way. Depending what I knew about the player, I might try a demi bluff and see how that works out. I think he'll have you accidentally beat sometimes for high, like with this hand.
So yeah, exactly the kind of hand that I mean, he might not have folded before the river. He does have the low, not the low draw, but he's got the flush draw and the gut shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is like, you can imagine there's no reason this had to be clubs. If this was king 6 deuce and this was suited in spades, for instance, that's the kind of hand that he would certainly fold on the turn, and instead he manages to get half the pot because I played too passively.
Yeah, and on other runouts, other good things could have happened to you if you had played more aggressively there.
You play this one?
No, that's a lot of unconnected. Yeah.
Yes, as we were saying, not having an ace in the hand really hurts its playability. Ace deuce 4-5, very premium hand. Deuce 4-5-7, not playable in early position.
I would open that hand from the button, but I would not play it. Yeah, this hand, it's an easy fold from under the gun.
I think this is that's kind of getting at another mistake people sometimes make in this game, is that they don't pay a lot of attention to position, and they just kind of have an idea of like what hands are playable, and then they play them, which I mean is kind of how a lot of beginners in Hold'em play as well. They just sort of like know what the good hands are, and then they just always play pretty looking hands without giving much thought to their position. And just like in any other game, your position is worth a lot in this game, both knowing that you're going to have position post flop, and also just knowing how many people you need to get through pre flop in order to steal the blind. So there's plenty of hands that are not entirely playable on their own merits, but when you throw in a little bit of fold equity, such as when you're raising from the button, then they become playable in early position, when you're going to have to play them out of position after the flop and you have little chance of winning the pot with a pre-flop raise. Then they're just unplayable hands, just like in any other game. You open that?
Yeah, it's bad, but it's a one-way hand. You'll make the nuts sometimes. You'll be able to put pressure on sometimes. It's a bad hand. Folding is not terrible by any means, but it's a hand I open for its stealing value.
Okay.
It's a good hand. 3 to the wheel. You have an ace. You have a suited ace. Many good things going on.
A little bit of Broadway potential.
Yeah.
You okay with that fold?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. It's borderline. I would open it from the button, maybe from the cutoff. But yeah, I like its high potential. But folding is good.
It's been a little eye-opening to me how many kind of high only or largely high only hands you're advocating playing. I think that's something I need to do a little differently.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like re-raising with suited connectors when it's deep in Hold'em. I mean, you're looking for a specific subset of situations, but A, you have bluffability when those situations don't happen, and B, you can just be in great spots and make great disguised hands. So some of this is stack depth. This is very important. The plays I'm advocating, it has something to do with the fact that we're many big blinds deep, over 100. So these one-way hands, notice that I'm advocating playing them in position where you can bluff and control the pot, etc. I'm not advocating going too far with a one-way hand when the board gets scary. But beyond that, it is a bit like playing suited connectors and Hold'em. The good situations are good enough for you that it's worth doing deep.
Okay, so this is the kind of nuttiness I need to play a high only hand.
Yeah.
But I think that's a pretty uncontroversial open.
Yeah, it's a thing of beauty, that hand.
How do you feel about that?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, ace 10, 10, 5. I mean, it's not great. It's sort of deceptive. Note that this is like worse than your previous hand. I mean, the ace five is some low value, but the set of tens will be in trouble sometimes, or it'll create low possibilities. The suited ace is nice. It's a very good hand. I would play it every time, but it's probably prettier than it is good.
One interesting thing about this hand that I think is a little bit non-obvious is that it would be a better hand if the 5 were a club instead of the 10, because then it would be possible to make, or you could make a set with backup flush potential, which you're not going to be able to do here. Kind of a minor point, but it does actually affect the playability of the hand a little bit.
Yeah. This is one of the worst flops you can get for this hand. Yeah, you're right to fold.
Even though I have an overpair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Get over it, Hold'em players. Hold'em pairs, over pairs, not generally good hands on this board, especially not when there's low possible. So this is quite premium. Where I don't know if premium is exactly the right word, but I mean, a lot of ace deuce combinations are playable, especially when you throw another low card in there and you're suited to the ace. And having the second deuce, although it doesn't play that well for you. I mean, so making a set of deuces, there can be a little bit of value in that, especially since I will have a low even when there's a deuce on the board. But the nice thing about having a second deuce in your hand is that you reduce the likelihood that you end up having to chop the low portion of the pot. So when ace deuce makes the nut low, which it frequently will, more often than any other low combination, when it makes the nut low, if I have a deuce in my hand, it's less likely that I'm going to have to share that with my opponent. So I think it does. It contributes something to the value of the hand as a blocker.
Yeah, I think you can also file this one under prettier than it is good, but it's still very good. So yeah, I would happily play.
So this is kind of an interesting spot here. I've got top pair with a bad kicker. I've got a bad low, and one thing that I'm conscious of though is that I do block some of the stronger lows that are possible here. So with me holding 2 deuces, it's more difficult than usual for my opponent to have deuce 4 or deuce 5, which I'm thinking may lead to me bluffing in some situations later. I started off with a check call.
Yeah, check call is good. Against a tight continuation better, check fold is fine. But because, I mean, your high hand is very poor. Notice against a preflop raiser, and especially a non-button preflop raiser, you're in very bad shape for the high, and then you also have a bad low. So if he's any kind of a tight continuation better, just fold your hand. That said, you're getting a good price. You do have a two-way hand, and this board's going to make him want to pot control sometimes. So I think you can happily put this one in a peel, then be done with it category.
Okay. Pretty decent turn that could have counterfeited if he had a 6-4 or 6 deuce kind of hand for low. So this has the potential to counterfeit some better lows of his. And I decided to turn my hand into a semi bluff.
It's interesting. I think I like the aggression. I think some hands will have a hard time calling here. I think your hand looks like a good low. I would say a good one-way hand, but it's hard for you to have that good a high. So I think your hand looks like deuce 4, or maybe maybe deuce 4-5. That would be certainly good, or maybe something like deuce 5, 7, 8. I think it'll make him want to fold sometimes. Deuce 4 with diamonds, deuce 5 with diamonds. I think you can represent things. That said, it's hard for you to represent more than like a one-way hand or a one-way hand with a draw. So it's going to be hard for him to fold too much, especially on the high side. My instinct was to check call a small bet, check fold to a big bet, but I like your creativity here. I like that you have 2 deuces to make this play, and I think you may have found a spot that I wouldn't have. It's very thin, and it's hard to represent too much, but people do like to fold. It's hard for him to have much, and so I can certainly see where you were coming from.
So he called, and the river pairs up the 9. I think that's 9 basically is the worst card in this game for people to play. It doesn't count towards the low. It's the worst possible high. So I didn't think he was very likely to have a 9 in his hand. I'm pretty sure I continued my semi bluff here for that reason. It also, if he had a hand like ace 6 or ace 3 for high, it counterfeits that. So I chose to fire again.
Yeah, that might be thin. Your hand looks like a low. It's not easy for you to have a 9. He could have a 9.
I mean, my hand is
tough.
low. Like if he just calls me with ace king, just thinking like I probably have a low, I am going to get half the pot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think it's good. I think aggression is good in this game.
Like I can beat like ace king 6-4, or I can chop with ace king 6-4 if he hero calls it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's thin. I think he would. I do think he would call some of his good hands on the turn. For a lot of reasons, because he worries about getting 3/4 or something. Like I wouldn't interpret his just call on the turn as weakness. I think you'll call here and get scooped sometimes, but I like the aggression, and I haven't put pen to paper, but I wouldn't be surprised if this bet shows a profit.
It's not that easy for him to scoop me. So I mean, he would have to have like ace 4-5 plus a better kicker, or ace 4 deuce plus a better kicker. I mean, he opened from the cutoff. Right. Like, I mean, those hands are in his range, but he has to have like 3 to 4 specific cards in his hand to get a skip.
Sure, but I mean, it's not impossible to have a 9. I mean, what if you had like 9-4-3 deuce or something? Like you could have 9-5-3 deuce. It's not. I mean, I agree that. But I do think that a lot of the hands that beat you, like ace 10-5 deuce, like a lot of those are in his range. A lot of those would just call the turn. So yeah, I think you get scooped here a little more than maybe you thought you might.
Well,
but
not this time.
Nice work, way to go. No, it's a good play. I mean, aggression is good.
You okay with that fold?
Yeah, it's a good fold.
I'm surprised I feel like I would have raised that. I assume you want to.
Yeah, I would. I mean, it's bad. You make a lot of bad hands, but
I've got the button.
Yeah, I'll try not to repeat myself too many times. I would open.
That one too?
Yeah, I would fold that hand. It's junky. That's a good That's a good fold. You just made a good fold. Okay. You just made a good fold. Yeah. Just leave it up for one more second. Ace Jack 7-7. It is suited to the ace. You do have a pair, but it's a good way to make a lot of bad high hands and a lot of bad low hands. Don't play this out of position. Andrew makes a very nice fold here.
Oh, thank you.
Good fundamental
I was afraid you were going to yell at me for folding. I think I would have played like button, maybe even cut off, but no, I'm not going to open it.
Yeah.
You can see peeling a small raise with that, but not a big one.
Exactly.
Even though that was a pretty great flop for
me. For such a small raise, peeling is not the worst thing. I mean, that's a bad hand, but you'll make the nuts sometimes. So you get a limp, then a min raise. It's very thin. Folding is good, but calling is not as bad as it might look.
One thing I was conscious of is Jakarta's stack size. So
good. Oh, very good. Yes, fold. Yes. He'll just ship it on you because he doesn't want to play out of position.
Right. Like
very
if
good.
It goes,
you noticed
if I call and Bakika calls, then Jakarta now can repot it and get like a good chunk of his stack in there and get a heads up with Sturm or something.
Yeah. Good.
You play that?
Probably, but it's not great. It's very thin. I think I would probably limp behind.
What about that
one? Sorry, what was it? Ace Queen 9-6. I would fold. Yeah, I would call here. Got some not quite as good as it looks, but you have two-way potential. I would peel this flop.
Yeah.
You have a pair.
And a lot of backdoor straight draws.
Yep, you got a backdoor flush draw. You can't yeah, you're going to make two pair a fair amount of the time. Yeah, you're gonna turn a lot of straight draws. It's good things happen. Your pair of sevens is good a little bit more than one might think. So this is good things are happening.
Yeah, and
That said, I would raise.
yeah, I mean, I think the low potential here is not fantastic, but with the deuce on the board, it's there's a better than average chance that he got counterfeited for his low, and especially if the turn is like a 3, that's a really great card where it's going to counterfeit some more of his potential low hands, and it's going to open up a wrap and some low. Oh, I'm really surprised I folded that. That seemed like a
Wow. That's no bueno.
yeah.
That's...
I mean, there's some spots where you're surprising me, but that seemed like pretty obviously I should be check calling there. I don't know why I folded.
Were you multi-tabling when you were playing
I
this?
think I was. I mean, maybe playing like 3 tables. I wasn't. I mean, I was being relatively attentive.
I see.
I mean, I have to be to play a game like this. I don't know enough about it to like autopilot it. You call that one?
It's probably you make it's the good situations are good enough that I would probably play that, but I don't fault the fold. I think it's the hand's not as good as it looks, but yeah, so Sean is probably going to ship it loose on the flop, and when you do catch a good flop, you should be able to make some money with this hand.
100 tips will go in there probably pretty frequently.
Yeah, and you can check your relative position is pretty good, and I really like what you're thinking, and especially seeing a marginal two-way hand where you're only in for 25, you have to play out of position, at least in the absolute sense, and you're deep stacked. Yeah, I really like how you're thinking. In this exact situation, I think enough good things will happen that I would make a slightly speculative call.
So you can see me here really emphasizing staying out of trouble. That seems like I should open that as well.
Yeah, I mean I would because I like to play the button, but it's a bad hand.
Yeah, I think maybe I didn't just because Jakarta kind of seemed like he was over it,
Sure.
But I didn't really want to like face a re-raise from him.
No.
You think that was a mistake to fold?
Marginal. I would fold. It depends on the lineup. Look, I'm going to be honest. In the cash games that I most like, not that I play this game all that often, in the cash games that I would probably play, 3 off the button, I would probably open that hand. But against good players, that will probably not be a profitable situation. You are double suited. You do have the ace 4. I like your fold here, especially with Sean. Well, but if Sean re-raises, like hot and cold, your hand is fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, again, this is me just kind of trying to stay out of trouble.
Good.
I think when in doubt, if there's a 9 in your hand, fold.
Yeah, I would play. It's a pretty good re-raising hand. Yeah, you hit a lot of boards. You get some folds out of some lows that beat you. You've got some high potential. At the same time, it can be a little bit tough to play without the initiative after the flop, so I would at least call, maybe re-raise. But notice how little re-raising we're seeing on this table. People, it's definitely an unorthodox. I'm doing things that other people don't do by 3-betting a lot, and you can decide for yourself whether that's good or bad.
So this is, I think, a very poor hand that maybe will look pretty to some people, but just like these medium straights are just not that valuable. So with 10 jack on the board, you don't have the nuts. With 4, 5, 6 on the board, you do have the nuts, but you don't have a low. So this just really not a lot of good things come out of playing this hand. And pretty much any low that you make is going to be very poor. It's just not a good hand.
Again, it could be actually a useful device. Like if you got that hand in pot limit Omaha high, would you be really happy? No. And it's much worse than a high low, so just fold.
Like it matters how low your low cards are. I see a lot of people in hopefully you won't be as loose as some of the worst people who play in these games, but I see a lot of people who just kind of play anytime they have 3 to 4 like low, somewhat connected cards, and the lowest low cards are a lot better than the highest low cards.
Yep. I would call that.
I should have peeled that. I don't know why I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and especially like if you look at these, yeah, I mean, I would play that hand. And I haven't made like a scientific study of this. If you look at the pots, you aren't seeing like, 10,000 chip pots all over the place. It's not quite the case that these people are all really putting the screws to each other. And that really should affect. Like yes, queen 6-4 single suited. That's a hand that'll get you in trouble a lot, but it only gets you in trouble if your opponents make it that way for you.
So if they're too passive, you can peel more from the big blind.
Yeah.
Similarly, in Hold'em, I will check my opponent's post-flop aggression as a way of determining some kind of borderline defense from the big blind. I'll look at if you see bets not enough, or actually if you see bets too much. Also, I think you can play more hands from the big blind. Whereas if he plays well, then you have to make more folds because you don't have implied odds coming off of those mistakes. Yeah, I mean, this seems to me more marginal than some of the hands that I folded before, but it doesn't seem like
you folded hands I like better than this one, but it's it's not real bad though. Okay, you got a backdoor flush draw. You've got a little bit of straight possibility. You have low. I think bet folding is a good. I wouldn't automatically continuation bet, but as I was talking about before, you're not going to face a lot of pressure on this flop unless you're in a bad way. So I would and checking isn't that great for you. So I would bet, and if Sean folds, then you get to play the rest of the hand in position. That's nice. And if people don't fold, it often means you're in some kind of trouble. So I would start with a bet.
Yeah, I strongly suspect that I checked.
Yeah.
And just folded, actually.
Yeah.
It's a pretty hand. It would be nicer if I were suited to the ace. You think it's worth raising?
I would probably pot it. Yeah, you got 3 to the wheel. It's close. Checking is good, but it's not a great. I mean, the low part of your hand works well multi-way, but the ace jack, the ace 5, the 5 high flush, those work better in a short-handed situation. So if you. It plays well both ways. It plays well both ways. You should consider raising.
Okay. So I ended up getting sort of an interesting flop here. Bottom 2 and backdoor nut low. I do think there's somewhat more merit to bottom 2, as I mentioned before, in PLO8 than there is in PLO. Like a lot of king jack combinations that would be playable in PLO high are being folded in PLO8, although maybe not as often in a limped pot. But yeah,
I would start with the check.
Yeah, I think especially with my having the backdoor low as well, there's not a lot of value in betting because I'm not really going to make hands that have a lot of equity fold against me. If I didn't have the low, maybe there'd be a bit more value in betting to fold people off of backdoor lows. So that's a pretty great turn. I think it's not very likely to affect the quality of my high. Really, the only hands that have been promoted are like King 7, Jack 7, and Pocket 7 to hands. And now I have the nut low along with a strong 2 pair. So I think just betting right out, you can get value from draws, you can get value from other nut lows. The high is not as good as yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And when the draws hit, like they some of the drawing hands will be able to like put pressure on you later, but that's okay. You have the nuts one way. You have a little bit of you have some high value. This is a good hand. Just bet, see what happens.
Right, like I'm not going to get bluffed out on the 6 of clubs river.
No,
so
you're fine.
If my Jack 5 is good, I'm gonna realize that equity.
Yeah.
Pretty bad river card, counterfeiting my my 2 pair. What would you do at this point?
I would check and consider calling. I think a lot of hands will either check behind. Sometimes a better hand will check behind. Sometimes a worse hand will bluff. if you have a really strong read on this opponent, you could consider making it like a bluff catcher bet and trying to value bet your ace jack. But I think that's just very dangerous, and I think it's just too easy for that hand to be beaten. So I would check and expect it to go check a lot. If he bets, I would look at his stats and make a decision. I think you are good for high here a fair amount, and I think the hands that beat you will often check behind. I guess even some opponents won't value bet a naked 7 here, so I would check and expect to win a fair
amount. And a lot of
draws
miss. I think some of them, like Queen 10, he would probably bet on the flop, but 6-8 missed, clubs missed, 10-9 missed. So ace deuce for that, like he could have some sort of low draw that whiffed.
Yeah. 3-4. Yeah. So check and expect to win a lot. And look, and he had a better hand than you.
Did not value bet it.
Yeah. Yep.
I decided to PL min-raise him position.
Yeah, it's a bad hand, but you're getting a good price and you have position. It's a piece of junk, but it's junk that can do something.
Something on a hand I'm eager to play.
Yeah.
Above average flop here with a wrap. You fire into a check.
Yeah, he can have a lot of hands that don't want to play in a deep stack situation on this board. And once again, if you face a lot of pressure, you probably aren't in good shape anyways. So any hand with a flush draw has you in bad shape. So just bet and see what happens. I like that.
I'm not sure what to think of the. I mean, it's definitely not the turn card I was hoping for. Given the number of like ace deuce and deuce 3 kind of combinations that he should be opening, I do think there's a fair chance he paired the deuce, in which case he's certainly not going to fold to a bet. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of thinking a lot of his flop feeling range isn't going to fold to a bet now on the turn.
I think that's right. And if you didn't have a low, I would be a little more inclined to fire again. But you've got some showdown value. You would like to see if you make a straight. I would just check, and everything you just said is right too.
Okay. And I do think a pretty great river. Well, I guess not really great. Yeah. I mean, I make the straight, but I don't have a very good low, so there's pretty easy for him to have a low that beats me. Strikes me as a situation to just pot it and hope he folds.
Yeah, do pot it. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's a pretty clear demi-bluffing situation there, where it's very unlikely that I'm beat for the high, given how passive he's been. I mean, I don't have the nuts, but I think based on the way the hand is played out, I really had no doubt that my straight was good. So then it's just a matter of like, it's almost a free roll. I mean, it's literally a free roll actually to bet the river. I guess almost in the sense that there's like a 5% chance he's slow playing a full house or something. But I mean, I think basically you can just pot it here, and if he looks you up, if he hero calls you with a low, then you still get your 528 back. And if he folds half the pot, then you get the whole pot.
Yeah, and I mean also he can have queen 3 deuce or whatever and call. True, yeah. It's not. I get the whole pot a little bit more than I'm expecting in that spot. How about that?
You 3-bet this or call? Okay.
Either is fine. This deep, you're going to run into some trouble if he plays well in position, but it's a very good hand. You have 3 low cards. The 6 backup is nice. You got a suit. You hit some of those high boards. I would 3-bet this often, but as long as you don't fold, you're fine. And in a tournament, I can certainly see a case for calling.
Interesting board here with top pair, top kicker, backdoor not low, and I'm maybe over noticing the fact that I will have a nut blocker if a diamond comes on the turn. Backdoor hearts as well. I don't see any reason to start off by betting though.
Nah, I think checking and calling is good. The dry guy does increase your bluff ability later, but for now, just check.
When it checks around, it becomes easier to value bet this hand on some later streets than if I dunk the flop. Then I think turns are a little harder to play. This particular turn though is not real good for me. I don't think there's really a case for betting this. Unfortunately, no. I'm not going to make the nut low, and I would think that Stern would probably bet Jack 10 if he had it, but Baikika could still have Jack 10, and certainly either of them could have a king in their hand. Probably not even worth peeling a bet now, right?
Nah, I would fold. Good. It's fine. Check is also okay. It's hard, it's you can get some better hands each way to fold, but a lot of ace threes, ace fours, those aren't going to, you have the third nut low and you have a little bit of high value. You can get some sixes and eights to fold, so that's nice, but if you're going to check behind, this isn't a bad hand to put in your check behind range. It's got some value. Sometimes things turn. You aren't going to, not as many good things happen when you bet this hand as happen when you bet other hands. So I don't fault the bet, but it's a hand to consider checking behind with, and it's also useful. I guess I can ask you, what were you hoping to accomplish with this bet?
I think I'm mostly thinking in terms of like occasionally getting better highs to fold, but in no small sense, just kind of cleaning up equity. Going from having like 70% equity to 100%.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that counterfeits one of the lows that was beating me. Two of the lows that were beating me.
Yeah. So I think given this player type, you might have a hard time getting too many folds from hands that won't also fold the river, and you risk a check raise here if you bet. So I like checking behind and then potting the river if checked to you. Very few players will check a very nutty hand, 3 times. So I would, I think that's my preferred line is to check now and then pot it later. And if you think about his calling range on the flop, that 4, it helps your ace 5, but it also helps a lot of his hands. And importantly, a lot of the hands that beat you will find a raise, especially at this stack depth. So I like a check.
I think that might have been what I did.
Yeah. Well, that sucks.
No, I think it's pretty straightforward fold.
I think it's a fold. I think he'll have ace 3 sometimes. I think he'll have 3/4 of the pot, quite a bit. This is a good bet by him. You're definitely folding away equity here. He can have, an 8 high straight. You can have 3/4 of the pot sometimes that he's doing this. The bad things can happen by folding here, but I think you have to.
I'm just proud I didn't convince myself to re-raise because I had the ace of diamonds.
Nice.
So I guess we can.
Yeah, that's good.
Call pre-flop seems not too controversial.
Yeah.
And then the interesting question is whether there's a case for betting the flop.
Given that you just called before the flop, I think plenty of hands will be pot controlling. I do think you get folds here a little bit more often than you might expect. And when you get a fold, you probably like it. This one can go either way. I just as a report of what I do, I play this one both ways. I would probably slightly lean toward a bet, just because when you get check raised, you're often not folding away much, and you don't get check raised a lot, and you can check behind on the turn if you need to. That said, checking is absolutely fine too, I think.
So that's what I did, and turn is kind of interesting. So I ended up deciding to pot it here because I have the nut blocker, but realistically, I think that if I actually have the nut flush draw, I'm probably betting the turn more often than not.
Yeah, but I like your bet here. It's as scary for them as it is for you. You've got the king. You have a complete low. Some of the hands that call you will not have any kind of low. It's going to be hard for you to get raised by too much. And I like this bet.
I also think it's the kind of like what I mentioned there about I probably would have bet the flop if I had the nut flush draw. I'm somewhat less concerned about those things when I'm playing against probably non-expert players.
Yeah. Also, like if you had King Queen Jack 10 with nut diamonds, would you really bet that flop?
Yeah,
I don't know.
fair.
Maybe. Yeah.
So I decided to limp this under the gun, and I think this was partly inspired by I was watching blanking on his real name, but Potential. I was watching him.
Oh, uh,
Yeah,
Ryan
I knew it was Ryan.
LaPlante.
I kept wanting to say Ryan Van Sanford, but that's a different Ryan. Yeah, so and he was talking some about, or there was some discussion in the chat of his Twitch stream about limping in PLO8, and he was kind of an advocate of it. And this strikes me as a hand that's pretty decent for that. It's a hand that plays well in multi-way pots and is somewhat flop dependent. So basically, what we're really looking for is either nut clubs obviously would be great, or anytime there's a deuce on the board, I have a lot of nut low potential. And the reason why I say it plays well multi-way is that if, for instance, the flop is something like deuce 5-8, let's say, and someone else has ace 3, I'm going to have, so I've got an open-ended straight draw in that situation. I've got backup low potential, and if I end up playing a big pot against someone else who just has ace 3, then I end up kind of free rolling them. So this strikes me as a pot that really is a hand that really doesn't mind playing multi-way pots.
I agree. I think those reasons would be even better if your hand weren't so good. so this deep, this deep, it's very tempting to raise and just play a nice big pot with such a good hand. If you had like a hand like ace 3, 6, 8 double suited, then I like the limp even better. But this hand, it's a great hand. It plays real well. Plays well multi-way. It plays well heads up. It's just a good hand. I like the creativity, and I like recognizing that this isn't hold'em. You don't always have to raise.
Okay, so important takeaway is it's okay to have a limping range, even if maybe this was too strong to put into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all kind of backdoors and weakness being shown by opponents. Should have bet that.
Yeah. Call.
I don't know. I don't really have much high potential here.
It's real. Yeah, it's real thin. It's real thin, but you make two pairs sometimes. You make a low sometimes. He's incentivized to just sort of fire away. You can easily fold for a bet on the river. Pairing the king or the 10, you can bluff him off of half the pot sometimes. It's not that many people who are gonna semi bluff and then not try to run a demi bluff or something when they get there on the river. So you can make some comfortable folds sometimes. It's thin. I'm not saying it's great, but I would probably carry on and it's especially. How about this? I think your fold is good. And now that I've had a second to cool off, I think that makes sense. I think if you bet less, I think if you bet like half the pot, I would really like to call and not give him the pot that easily. Yeah, does that make sense?
I will say I feel better about the fold than I do about the flop check.
Yeah. No, the fold is I think good.
I'd be happy to see a free flop with that, or even to call raise with it.
Look at you getting it, mixing it up with these high hands. I'm proud. Past Andrew.
Interesting flop here with a fair amount of backdoor potential, not to mention top pair. Not having a low definitely hurts me. I don't think I want to bet.
Yeah, I would fold to if Sturm XXL, if he had bet the flop, I would fold. That said, if you can somehow be sure you're closing the action, there's a little more justification for calling. That said, calling a quarter, or a fifth or a sixth of your stack out of position with just a bad high, I would not do that now. In a heads-up situation, you're going to have good playability on the turn, so I'd be a little more tempted to peel. I hope you fold here, though.
Yay.
Hey, nice work. Well done, Past Andrew.
Again, kings, not really that exciting of a hand, even though I would have left top set.
Yeah, I probably I would play that hand sometimes, but as a basic play, it's good to fold.
I'm pretty sure I peeled here. Are you okay with that?
It's junky. I like this hand less than other hands you didn't peel with. It's not terrible just because you're getting such a good price. So, but yeah, the fold is fine. If it's real close either way. It's a junky hand.
One thing to keep in mind with that is that probably about half the time that you make a straight with your Jack 8, there's, or no, that's not true. Never mind. I was going to say there's going to be 3 to, or at least 2 to low on the board, but that's not true. Ignore. That's the kind of stuff I like to peel with. The nuts.
Yeah, good call. Through the wheel, not possibilities. This is good. Calling is fine. 3-betting is fine. This is very good. You hit a bad flop, I would certainly just look to check fold that flop. As you've learned from talking to me, I can find other hands to call with. You don't have to do it with this one. This is, and again, you might think that that this is a spot to take a shot, and that wouldn't be the worst thing. But I think from a range point of view, other hands will be better. You're going to check the flop with plenty of hands with a pair in them. I'm going to be defending with plenty of high hands, so I'm perfectly happy to choose better hands than ace high with a gut shot to attack this turn with. You're going to have a flush draw sometimes. I have an easy time just check fold.
Sure. No, I did side fire at it.
Nice
I think I decided he would have bet a lot of his Jack 10 on the flop, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I think like King Jack 10 is a pretty reasonable checking combination on the flop.
Sure. Or King Queen. I mean, if for exploitive reasons you just thought in game that this guy was going to fold way too much, then go ahead and exploit. I think. Sure, but I think from a range point of view, as I'm playing this hand, especially if I'm multi-tabling, I'm thinking I got a lot of hands better than this. I'm not going to bluff 100%, and this is not in the X%, so just let it go. That said, you picked up sort of an important pot for you in the tournament, so nice work.
All right, well, thanks for your help, and let's go ahead and call it a video for part 2.
Fantastic. See you at part 3, Andrew.
Alrighty, hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, well, first off, if you've already contributed to the organization and participated in the fundraising campaign that I had at the end of 2015. Thanks very much. No need for you to do anything further. If you have not yet contributed to the organization, I'll encourage you to pay whatever you wish. But if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and click the donate link here and make a little contribution to the Bay Area Urban Debate League. That's all that we're asking in exchange for this free poker strategy video. Thanks and have a good day.